Hi, this is Rob Sparks from the National Optical Astronomy Observatory. I'd like to welcome you to this episode of the 365 Days of Astronomy podcast. I'm sitting here today with Kitt Peak's first two artists in residence, Judy Goldhill and Jane Grisewood. Good morning, Judy and Jane.
Morning.
Morning, Rob.
First, you're our first artist in residence here at Kitt Peak. I was wondering, first of all, you could just introduce yourselves quickly and tell us a little bit about the type of art you've done, a little bit about your background.
My name's Judy Goldhill. So I went, after a career as a portrait photographer, I went back to art school about 6 years ago to do an MA in fine art, and still using photography as my practice. I was exploring different ways of using the medium. My residency here has been to look at the machinery that makes the invisible visible. My work has been a lot about making the invisible visible by using lots of time-lapse photography and using elemental work to make to show how things are visualized in a different way, what the naked eye can't see.
Thank you, Judy. And how about you, Jane? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yes, I come from a book publishing background and went back to university as well to do a BA in fine art and then an MA about 10 years ago, and then continued doing a PhD in fine art practice, drawing, and it was about marking time. My main interest in my practice really is time, temporality, which includes sort of durational work, movement, and its focus is really on drawing. I mean, drawing is the sort of key to my work, but drawing in its broadest sense, drawing as a verb, so the doing, the process, the making, and the journey that, and that sort of follows. I use the line a lot as my method of working, so a lot of the drawings include repetition and extends to performance work as well as sort of works on paper. And here at the residency, the interest has been in the sort of time, particularly the time scales, and just and the movement, the orbits and the transitions, and the fact that everything's in flux. And I think that's where the sort of key interest is how to sort of portray this immense depth and flux, and nothing is sort of stable. The challenge, of course, is how to visualize this. And in a sense, the residency has been incredibly sort of provocative, in a sense, in pushing our thought processes into another dimension. And that includes it is about how does one visualize something so amazing and extraordinary. And I think the experience in Kitt Peak has been extraordinary, opening our eyes to a completely another dimension of sort of that can work in fine art practice. But it's a challenge.
Okay, well, thank you. That's great. You've been here, about 10 days now or 2 weeks, something like that?
We're in our final furlong, which is a kind of month, actually. We're going to be here a month. And so we've now amassed a huge amount of data and information. And as Jane says, it's about going back home now and processing all the information that we've got. I mean, I've got kind of so many photographs. My computer's kind of exhausted from it all, and it's making sense for me visually to make sense. I'm not an astrophotographer and never will be, and that I've been kind of astonished at how many beautiful photographs all the astronomers that I've met and all the people who work in all the offices take. So there's no way that I can compete with them, but I'm hoping that I can put images together in a way that makes sense from the kind of ethereal beauty of the landscape of where Kitt Peak is, and which is something that I find very compelling, and the astonishing light that you get in Arizona that we're very much deprived in the UK, and then to somehow relate it to the images that we're seeing, imaged photographs or imaging that we see through the telescopes and through discussions with the operators and the astronomers and all the people in the offices at NOAO, to somehow, for me, to put all this together in some meaningful way. Photography is very much about death and the past, and so it's a conundrum that the telescopes that are looking into the past and are making it real, and so it's this extraordinary kind of telescoping of time backwards and forwards that I find very exciting, and trying to figure a way through that in some meaningful way.
Could you give me an example of some specific event or thing you've seen on your time here that's influenced your art, and how you plan on incorporating that into your art?
Yes, I mean, that's been the most exciting, is that the unknown of coming here and the discovery of, I mean, it's really an experience, a life experience that one didn't expect to have, to be able to be privileged to go into the telescopes. I think the thing that I found immensely exciting was that the very simple, minimal spectra that came from all the telescopes, from the viewing of these fantastic distant objects, were actually translated into lines. And and the information that those lines held. And I felt that there needed to be some way to express that we could find life on another planet through a simple line, the absorption and emission lines that the spectra gave. And I've spent a lot of time seeing how and thinking that one can translate that into paintings and drawings or even installation that would convey to the public, to the audience, that holds the secret to outer space in a sense at this point, or to deep space. That was one huge experience that was unexpected.
And I think that'd be great if you could do that, because you always see these pretty pictures Hubble takes in the paper, but you never see a pretty picture of a spectra.
Exactly. And I think the thing is that in a world that is so glossy and visual with 3D films, and we're just thrown with these incredibly, fantastically real images, that to sort of go back to something simpler and more minimal as a line that actually holds so many secrets. It's just, in a sense, that is the invisible, make it made visible, and as well, is somehow to convey. And so the other thing that's really been exciting is the black and the darkness and the depth of black, and I've felt very much that it's about seeing in the dark. I do a lot of drawing which is in the dark, and also drawing on black paper, not looking. And somehow here it's happened that in the dark you see. And it's sort of like a conundrum as well. It's a paradox in a sense. But it's in the dark that we find all of these wonderful secrets about the universe. And that's immensely exciting. And it's, again, how to express and how to portray that visually. And also to communicate it to an audience, because that's the aim of being here, is how to communicate these amazing things.
Kind of the opposite end of the scale, really, to Jane. It's the light that I've found so exciting, and everything, all the imaging, whether it's photography from my simple little digital camera to the massive cameras that I've seen produced here that will produce the most astonishing imagery, and it's all predicated on light, and all the information that we get is from the light. And so that to me is incredibly exciting. And the idea of time and movement, I've had the privilege of being kind of locked in one-to-one with in the telescopes, and to actually physically be in the telescope and listen to the sound of it moving, of the what's it called, the machine opening, the dome opening, and the whirring of that, and then the movement of the telescope. And so I've actually been photographing the kind of whirling of all this machinery and the sounds and these extraordinary machines that enable us to look at more light, and photographing that in the dark. It's just been fabulously exciting.
Can I just add about, I mean, it is, when I say seeing in the dark, it actually is about light. It's the light that you see in the dark. So it wasn't that I just want complete blackness. It's the fact that through the dark you're seeing, and it isn't light that's giving you light. It's darkness giving you light. Yeah. So that's what's so exciting, I think.
Yeah, well, I think that the light and the dark themes you have both are working on very, very, very nice and complementary to each other here. It'll make for an interesting project in the end. So with that in mind, how do you plan on exhibiting or distributing this artwork? I know some of your plans are still in flux, but what are some of your ideas about how to get this out to the public and where people might be able to see it or learn more information about it?
Well, we're looking and having discussions with some galleries and museums here in Tucson. And when we get back to London, and I have an idea of what we're going to do, then we're planning to show in London and hopefully continue this residency back in Tucson and make it in some kind of international collaboration between us and galleries and museums. That's the plan.
Yes, I mean, that's exactly what Judy said. And I think the main remit as well is sort of focus that started us and got us so excited was the art-science relationship. And that's what this residency has facilitated for us, is that we can use the science that you also magnificently produce and somehow take it into the art visual world. And that sort of collaboration is really exciting.
Do you two have any websites or anything like that where people can go and find more information about you?
Yes, mine is www.janegriswood.com. I'll spell it out.
Sure.
It's JANEGRISEWOOD.
And mine is www.judygoldhill, JUDYGOLDHILL.com.
And we'll have those websites in the show notes for anyone at home who wants to download them, look them up as well, if you missed those. And just one last quick question. I believe you both were up on Kitt Peak for the annular eclipse last weekend. How was that?
Spectacular, magnificent, amazing. Out of this world, truly.
We were very privileged to be in the McMath Pierce telescope to watch it, and so we watched the eclipse happening live, kind of projected onto a rather wavy bit of cardboard. But it was, it was again that kind of extraordinary technology projected onto this funny little bit of cardboard, but and also with the operators who were in there, and we were running down the corridor to look outside as the sun was eclipsing and then have the imaging going on, and there was palpable excitement there. And then we went up to the 4-meter telescope at the top of Kitt Peak, and there was almost a religious experience. Everyone was there with lots of tripods and cameras and binoculars and telescopes, and very quiet, just watching the sun go down. And it was a truly magical experience to behold, quite spectacular.
Yes, I was up in the Grand Canyon for it, and it was absolutely wonderful. Well, thank you for joining me today, Judy and Jane.
Well, thank you, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I hope you'll join us next month. This is Rob Sparks for the 365 Days Astronomy podcast.